Hi, I'm Bill Carmody, and I'm the Marketing Whisperer. And today on the program, I have Rick Hamann, who is the Chief Creative Officer of The Onion. Hi, Rick. How are you?
Great. How you doing?
Doing excellent. I really enjoyed your session at Collision this year, and you have a very unique perspective because you have been both on the agency side as well as the publisher side. And so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about sort of what you've seen fundamentally change in the advertising industry, as well as now being on the publisher side, some of the things you're seeing now today.
Sure. I think one of the most interesting aspects of advertising that I've seen come over is this kind of change in the way that the audience behaves when it comes to advertising. You know, when I grew up, you would spend 18 months creating a television commercial, and then you would beat your audience over the head with it until they're under submission. And now, because of ad blocking, because of DVR skipping, our audiences have the ability to just reject advertising wholesale across the board. And so that's putting a lot more pressure on content, putting a lot more pressure on actually creating things that people actually want to watch. And I'm seeing definitely on the publishing side, you know, we are so beholden to our audience that we want to make things that they won't reject. But I can also see that from the agency side, that there's an increasing desire to actually reach people in a way that is delightful and engaging and unskippable just from a quality standpoint.
Which to me says that's the rise of both content marketing, native advertising, and influencer marketing. This seems to be the general trend as people are moving away from interruption advertising into more things that are highly engaging and drawing people deeper into the content as opposed to away from it. Is that correct?
Yeah, imagine actually looking at something that you want to see that happens to be brought to you by a brand or have a brand elegantly integrated, rather than to have something just be thrust upon you and it's unavoidable. And now that advertising is avoidable, we have to be a lot smarter with how to reach people.
So tell me a little bit about sort of when you look at how you are attracting and retaining more advertisers into The Onion, tell me a little bit about sort of the strategies you're using to deploy that native content, because it is important that they're part of the story, but you also want to keep that sort of editorial aspect as well. So it's a nice fine line you guys are balancing.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that with each advertising effort that we make, we try to build a plan that kind of has different touch points as far as how much a brand is going to be involved. So for instance, we may create a piece of editorial that has very little mention of an advertiser, but is aligned with an advertiser's message or a theme of that advertiser, and that kind of draws our audience in. But then within that world, we may create some messaging that has a little bit more advertiser hand in it, but it's still written with the same quality in mind as our regular editorial. And we feel that mixture of both things that are purely editorial, that kind of align, kind of brush up against an advertiser, and things that have a little bit more deeper advertiser engagement, that combination can really reach a lot of people and then add up to be something that's really special.
Well, and it sounds to me like you're sort of oftentimes saving advertisers from themselves. I mean, you've been on the agency world, and so much of this has been sort of direct, selling, as opposed to maybe Gary Vaynerchuk's jab, 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 right hook. And it sounds like to me you're sort of balancing out the jabs with the right hooks and doing that in a more effective way through content marketing.
Yeah. I think that you can't only go for right hooks. You can't just constantly, smash somebody with an advertising message. They're just going to instantly shut off. But I think if an advertiser can help bring something to life that you love, and then at the same time maybe give you a little bit more reason to love that advertiser, a little bit more, as I say, the little bit more reason to believe within that kind of combination, I think our audience gives that advertiser a lot more credit. I think, an advertiser will, the thing that we fight against a lot in The Onion is that an advertiser will sometimes come to you and say, "Can you just write a funny article about us?" And that's that's the fastest way to have our audience reject that advertiser, is to do something that really seems false or seems to smack of inauthenticity. And so I think that we try to create things that are very authentic and very true to our brand, but at the same time be able to bring an advertiser's message to life with the same care and craftsmanship that we do for our regular content.
Is there a particular example you might be able to share? Because all of this sounds fantastic in theory, but then it's like where the rubber meets the road. Like, what's a good sort of example of an advertiser that's come to you, how you sort of then took them into sort of a content world and sort of showed them the light? Here's exactly the kind of thing that would work really well with you.
Sure. The one that comes immediately to mind is that we actually partnered with Ford with Clickhole, our kind of a parody of all things internet. We created the guide to travel. It was this section on Clickhole that had lots of things that were kind of travel related that Ford could bring to life, and they were just insane things. But then within that section, we had things that were very directly associated with Ford, but they were done in the Clickhole voice. One of the videos that we created were, I think the title was, "Oh my gosh, these cars look exactly alike." And there were two Fords that were side by side, and the kind of vlogger Clickhole, the Clickhole kind of author was saying, "Oh my God, these cars look exactly side by side," and they were like kind of comparing the differences between this car, but he was doing it in such a way that he was just agog that there were two red cars that actually happened to be sitting next to each other in a parking lot. So there wasn't a ton of technology and a lot of laundry list of things that we had to say about Ford. Ford just wanted to be a part of Clickhole and wanted to be a part of this travel guide, but there were instances within the feed that had, Ford front and center, but it was just done in a very kind of tongue-in-cheek Clickhole style.
That's great. And so, and from Ford's perspective, then they're looking at this saying, look, we get the brand association, we've got the connection to the audience. These are the things we're trying to do, is to sort of push our sort of brand forward, and not necessarily like, hey, come into the dealership to this Thursday and get $500 off, blah, blah, blah. They're really doing it more in an authentic and engaging way that would be more appeal to your audience.
Yeah. And our audience gave Ford a lot of credit for that. Our audience, through our social channels said, I am programmed to hate advertising, but this is the first ad I've ever loved.
That's great.
Just attached to Ford. And they, because they didn't feel tricked, and because our audience didn't feel like they were having to, be force-fed something they didn't want to, they actually kind of allowed the advertising to say, okay, we understand that you have to make money. We understand that what it takes to keep the lights on, and we're okay with the deft touch that you guys put against this particular effort.
So if you were to make a recommendation to potential advertisers who are looking to do better content marketing, native content, things of that nature, give me a couple of the sort of key insights you would provide to them to say, to really make this work, you need to do the following.
Yeah, don't put all your eggs into one executional basket. You want to make sure you're creating a lot of content, because you never know what's going to hit. There are, if you are going back in the old model where you put all of your budget and all of your effort against one piece of content and it doesn't work, you're fucked. So I would try to create a lot of different things. I would also vary the amount of integration. I say be brave enough to utter the greatest words in the English language, brought to you by. Mm-hmm. And be okay with just bringing something to life. And then within your mix, having some things that have a little bit more of your brand message and a little bit more within that kind of bucket of stuff. A couple things can feel a little bit more branded, but I think be okay with something that is almost no branded, or something that's very lightly branded, because the whole of that effort will add up to be a lot more for you. And I would say be as simple as possible. I think you get one message and one message only. If you pollute your advertising with a ton of stuff, people are just going to immediately shut down. And I think the biggest one for us is it's okay to be scared. And that feeling that you're that terror that you have with doing something different or doing something new is actually where the most successful work comes from.
So be brave. Go out there and push the envelope a little, try some things that haven't been done before, ensure that you're always out there doing the next thing as opposed to just copying someone else.
Yeah, yeah, do something different. Life's too short, right?
And lastly, to your agency brethren, right, and sisters, right, is there any particular insights you'd give to the agency partners that are trying to support those clients doing more native content and more of this content marketing?
What I would say for an agency person is you own that relationship with the client, and the only way to do things that are interesting is to build trust. Sorry, I booted you out there for a second. Hold on. Can you still hear me?
Yep, I'm hearing you fine. You're totally fine.
Okay, sorry about that. I got a bunch of people lit me up here, so I can't see you, but I can hear you. But I would say, just to start over again, I think own that relationship with the client and become that client's best friend, because when you are going to try something new, when you're going to try something that's a little scary, you need a pal and you need a friend. And as much as we in the publishing world like to think that we can own that relationship, we're never going to own it as well as the agency people. And only through those great relationships and through that kind of trust building and being able to jump off the ledge together will everybody start to do better work.
So build the trust and then own it.
Yep.
That's good. I like it. It's good advice. Well, Rick, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate everything, the insights you've brought, and I look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
All right.